Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to my next team preview video. This is a little series I am going to be doing that I have been doing between now and the beginning of the season. I am, of course, trying to wrap these up as soon as I can because I know as soon as we get to that middle part of the year, a lot of people that are maybe casual fantasy football players are really going to be ramping up their drafts ahead of the season. So I'm trying to give out my full feelings on these team rosters, how I feel about them, and give it that fantasy football perspective so people can enter their drafts with as much knowledge on the players as they can possible. So we're going to keep that ball rolling today with the Detroit Lions. If this is your first video of mine that you're watching, to give those people a quick rundown. If you watched all my videos, feel free to skip ahead a minute or two to when I start talking about Dan Campbell. But really quick, yeah, so the video, basically what you can expect is I am going to preview the offense. I'm going to preview the defense. I'm going to give you my overall feelings at the end of the episode on this team, just come from a strict and regular football analysis type of point of view. And then I've always done this throughout all my analysis over the last few years is I'll go ahead and mix in some fantasy football analysis as far as if I want to draft the guys, if I think they're worth it, how I feel about them entering the year. So you're getting a perspective from that as well. And then one last little thing to note is these projected starters you will see, they are pulled from the Prospect Encyclopedia. That is a project I've been part of for the last 2 years. That's going to actually be released in the next week or so. So do go pre-order it if you can. Give you an idea, basically that Prospect Encyclopedia has a top 22 prospect list for all 32 teams. The players, in order to make the top 22 list, they have to be from the last 3 draft classes and they have to have less than 12 career regular season starts or less. So these are guys that are still gaining more NFL experience. Maybe they're entering as rookies. So you got from anything from future stars of the league to guys are going to be really good role players in the league to back up good core special teamers. So it's a really good product to read. I really liked last year's how it turned out. This year's I think is even going to be better. So the reason why I also say that is not only you're going to see the projected starters from that. If you do see anybody on these the projected starters or notable backups, if they have a star next to their name, they're inside that book. So if you go pre-order it, once that's released, you can read the scouting report on them ahead of this upcoming season. But yeah, let's go ahead and dive into this. Dan Campbell, he's a guy that's kind of been polarizing since he got hired. He did kind of come out of left field as far as getting the head coaching job. I don't think I know I wasn't. I was aware who Dan Campbell was. I remember his time when he took over in Miami as the interim head coach, and a lot of people got that's kind of like what people reference to as far as his ability to be a head coach. And then I know he's been in New Orleans the last I think 5 or so years, but I never really heard about him being a candidate for a head coaching job. He definitely wasn't one of those names you were hearing throughout last fall. But then he eventually obviously impressed I believe it's the Ford family that owns the Lions. So he got the job. His press conference, everybody saw that. It was kind of electric, talking about biting off the kneecaps and everything. So, everybody was kind of clowning on him. Some people were clowning on him. Some people loved it. I was one of the people that was like, it's just a coach getting fired up. And then when you actually looked into the full press conference, he started breaking down like his ideas, his philosophies, how he's going to run the team and all that. So I think he's got a good stable mind, even though the whole biting off the kneecap thing might have scared people away. But I think I'm kind of excited about this Dan Campbell era in Detroit. It is kind of hard to believe anybody's going to make it work in Detroit because, we have how many years now of evidence that it's very hard to win in Detroit and win consistently in Detroit. But I think he definitely has the mindset. If he can get his culture established there, I could see him maybe turning around this thing in about 2 to 3 years. They have a lot of work to do on some areas of the roster, but they have some pieces already in place that can help jumpstart the turnaround in Detroit, and that's just based on the people that they acquire through the next next two free agency classes and their draft classes. They still got. I'm about to go into it, but they need a lot of depth. Well, the questions at the quarterback, and then obviously there's some other stuff I'll talk about. But before I get into the offensive preview, let's go ahead and take a look at one thing I've been doing on these preview videos. Is taking a look at the remaining cap space and seeing if they're going to maybe go sign somebody, maybe give somebody an extension, or whatnot. If they have any money or no money to use. But Detroit does have some money to use if they wish to do so. As of last night on overthecap.com, they are projected for the 7th most remaining cap space. So they have $17.9 million. That's plenty of space, to go sign somebody. If a big name comes available via trade, they can go trade for somebody, or they can hand down an extension if they like. But as far as extensions, I don't see that happening. As far as guys entering their contract year, maybe if there's a rookie that's up in by next year, maybe they want to sign him early since they have the cap space to kind of throw away at this point. But notable guys entering their contract year, their projected starting safety, Tracy Walker. He's nothing to get excited about. I think they let him play out this year, and then maybe they can get a deal done at the end of the year. Deshaun Hand, he's a guy I always liked when he came in. He's come in more of a rotational player. He's currently set to be more of that rotational player, but he still has all the talent to be a pretty good player in this league. So maybe he has a big year this year, and they can do it at the end of the year. He's a guy I don't expect that to happen. Definitely don't expect it to happen for Tyrell Crosby. He's been working on the line for them ever since he's been drafted. But they drafted Penei Sewell with their first round pick this year. So now he's regulated into a backup role. I don't remember it. I don't know if they've been shopping him or if he requested a trade. I know his name has been talked into trade talks over the summer. So he's a name to watch for Detroit to try to move. Obviously, they're not going to give him an extension. And he's just in a backup role. So if a team finds themselves needing maybe a good, decent right tackle, Tyrell Crosby could be a name to watch for Detroit to ship out. Other than that, I mean, they're in a total tear down rebuild year in Detroit. I don't think they have high expectations to make the playoffs. So, I mean, I don't see them going to maybe go trade for an Xavier Howard or something like that. That's not going to happen. They're not going to go waste the cap space. So they're probably going to end up keeping most of that cap space. And I think most of that can carry over into next year. So that's what they're probably thinking as of right now. But yeah, let's go ahead and take a look at their offense. Now, these are projected starters, again, from the Prospect Encyclopedia. Ryan Frederick did write the Lions section. You can follow him on Twitter at RyanFred1415. And taking a look at the quarterback position to start, is Jared Goff. Obviously, everybody knows he was part of the trade that sent Matthew Stafford out to LA. He came back to Detroit. His career is officially, I guess you could say on the line. He's got to prove himself again in Detroit. Even though he's been successful as a quarterback, he's won a lot of games, he's been to the Super Bowl, but obviously there's questions about if he's a true franchise quarterback. I've always had my questions about Jared Goff as far as from his mental capacity and if he's a true dog at the quarterback position. He always kind of seems timid at times, and I always can never forget that. I think it was Hard Knocks when he didn't know where the sun rose. What side the sun rise. So that was a big telling sign to me that he was going to have his struggles at times in the NFL. But here's something to note. Now, obviously, you're kind of curious if his production is because of Sean McVay in LA. But taking a look at these stats, for those that are first-time listeners, basically I collect stats from the last 3 seasons. Just because I like that little small sample size. Gives you an idea who's been the most highly productive players in the league for the last 3 years. Jared Goff, since 2018, he actually has the 3rd most passing yards, 13,278. He's tied for the 5th most game-winning drives at 7. He's actually got the 6th most passing yards per game since 2018 at 282.5. And he's got actually tied for the 7th most rushing touchdowns among quarterbacks, of course, since 2018. He's got 8 of those from the last 3 years. So he's been a highly productive quarterback, but obviously I'm going to go ahead and say this in terms of fantasy football. I'm not drafting him at all. He's behind a really good offensive line, but I'm about to talk about his wide receivers. He doesn't have much among that group. There are obviously questions. What is this offense really going to look like underneath Dan Campbell. And then honestly, like I just don't think nobody's going to be drafting him. So like, listen, if Jared Goff does become a decent fantasy football relevant quarterback, he's a guy you're probably gonna be able to pick off the waivers in the first month. So maybe watch the first game or two. I mean, this team is probably gonna have their struggles this year, so it might end up turning into more of a pass happy offense if they have to constantly play catch up. So there's a chance he could be a decent garbage time quarterback and collect fantasy points this year. But this is a situation to watch. Don't waste a draft pick on him. And then if they get hurt, boy, if he gets hurt, this thing will go south. Their backup quarterback situation is kind of sketchy. They got Tim Boyle, who was a backup quarterback last year for the Packers behind Aaron Rodgers, and they have David Blau, and he only has like 1 or 2 starts, and everybody kind of remembers his 1 start, I believe, which was 2 years ago on a Thanksgiving for the Lions. Let's just go ahead and keep it moving with the running back position. That's DAndre Swift. He's their projected starter. This is a guy I am super high on. I liked him coming out of the draft class. I believe he was my RB2 in his draft class last year behind Jonathan Taylor. So I have high expectations for him to be a pro. He really flashed his ability to carve up defenses on the ground and honestly and into the screen game through the air as well. So I don't think that's going to stop him here. I know they signed Jamal Williams from the Packers last year, but that's not going to hold me back from taking a chance on DAndre Swift being a high volume RB2, RB3 this year, and on any given week can give you RB1 numbers. And the reason why I'm comfortable doing that with the questions surrounding all the pieces around him on the offense is the offensive line. This is a really good, solid offensive line, and as long as those guys remain in that lineup, I think they're going to open up nice holes for DAndre Swift to take advantage of. And one thing I kind of referenced about Dan Campbell's press conference when he was speaking about his team, his philosophy back in whenever he got hired in last year or this year. He mentioned something about making sure you get the ball in the best player's hands, and I kind of took it as like he came from New Orleans, right? Like Alvin Kamara might not be, he's not, he doesn't do the traditional like running back stuff, but they'll get him the ball in the screens, in the pass game, in a variety of ways to get the ball in Alvin Kamara's hands. So I kind of view DAndre Swift is going to be his Alvin Kamara. So I think he's going to see a significant amount of touches. And like I said, I don't think Jamal Williams is going to cut into his touches as much as some people do think that he will. Now, speaking of Jamal Williams, I really like watching him play. He can catch the ball. He can run the ball. So, I mean, if anything were to happen to DAndre Swift, I'm definitely going to go pick up Jamal Williams. He's definitely a quality handcuff back to own this year. Maybe you do draft him in case you have DAndre Swift, just in case something were to happen to him. I don't think Jamal is going to work his way into being fantasy relevant with the both of them, but I think he's going to get his nice share of snaps out of the backfield. And I think with DAndre's ability to kind of line up in the slot at times, I think it would not be a bad idea to actually use both of them on the field at the same time, because they don't really have, I'm about to talk about it, their wide receivers are nothing really special right now. So I think they're going to have to try to figure out a way to get those two on the field. And keep in mind too, Latavius Murray, he was able to get some fantasy numbers too with Alvin Kamara when they're both playing. So I kind of view it, Alvin, not as far as terms of talent, just in terms of role. DAndre Swift can be his Alvin Kamara. Jamal Williams can be their Latavius Murray, just like him, kind of like what they did in New Orleans, where Dan Campbell is coming from. And then as far as their wide receivers, yes, I've already kind of been sneak dissing this group already as I've been previewing the offense. So their wide receivers, they have no true alpha dog. That's just being bluntly honest. These are guys that are more better. At best, they're a wide receiver 2 in an offense. But to be honest, most of these guys are best served in a wide receiver 3 to 5 role. In a real, I'm talking real offense, not talking fantasy football. And in a real offense, these guys are more wide receiver 3 to 5s. At best, they can be a wide receiver 2, opposite of a true alpha dog at the wide receiver position. I'm not trying to draft any of these guys. If there is a guy I'm willing to bet on, it'd be Brashad Perryman. He has proved to be fantasy relevant in the past. Here's a stat I pulled. Now, keep in mind, when I pulled these yards per reception stat, the player had to have at least 12 regular season starts. I did that to kind of weed out the guys that maybe only get one or a handful of snaps in a game because they're field stretchers. So of course their yards per reception are going to be high. So anyways, Brashard Perryman, since 2018, he actually has the second most yards per reception at 18.1. So that might be a guy you can gamble, put on your bench, see if he can be a week in, week out starter, or maybe he's just a guy you keep on your bench. You can fill in if injuries happen or if there are bye weeks. Amon-Ra St. Brown, he's a good rookie that can come in and compete for the slot role in Detroit. But I don't have high expectations for him as a rookie. I think he will have his struggles, and he's a guy I'm not willing to draft. Tyrell Williams, I don't feels like he hasn't played in 2 years because he's been dealing with injuries. So I am not touching him with a 10-foot pole as well, because I feels like at some point he's going to be out of their lineup. And then just looking at their notable backups, they got some rookie guys in there. And then they got my man Quintez Cephas, from Wisconsin. He's a guy I really liked actually coming out last year. He did perform last year. He had a couple games where I think he saw more than 10-plus targets. And I think he's going to compete with the rookie Amon-Ra St. Brown for the role in the slot. And I wouldn't be surprised if they split it or if he does win the role. So he's another name to watch to see if he steps up. Again, though, maybe I take a chance on Brashad Perryman as a bench guy, but other than that, I'm not actively trying to draft any of the Lions wide receivers. This is a below average group, and I think they're the reason why this passing attack is going to be held back. So despite, even if Jared Goff can play to his best abilities, I have my worries that he's going to struggle because of the guys he's throwing the ball to, but he does have one really great option. So if there is one guy I will definitely attempt to draft this year, it's TJ Hawkinson. He's entering year 3. The kid is a stud. He can play on all 3 downs because of his blocking ability. And then, of course, he's a really good wide receiver. He's been showing steady growth in his first 2 years. And I think he's set to take up a next year 3 leap. And if there's anybody among the wide receivers and the tight ends that's going to dominate the targets, it's TJ Hawkinson. He has a clear path to be a tight end 1 in fantasy this year. And I'm trying to get him and as much as I can, because I think you can get him as a discount. He's a Lions player. People probably don't really want much of this offense, which I don't blame them. And the guys behind him, he's got some guys that lack experience. They did get Darren Fells from the Texans, who's been somewhat productive in the league, but that he's more for their double tight end sets. TJ Hawkinson should not leave the field unless he's absolutely gassed or if he has any type of injury. But yeah, TJ Hawkinson's somebody I'm pretty high on this year as far as fantasy football wise. And again, I basically already talked up their line. I really like it. They drafted Penei Sewell to go with Taylor Decker, so that already forms a really, really great bookend tackle situation. Jonah Jackson has come on as a good guard since entering the league. Big V, we'll have to see how he can play at the right guard position, but he has some tenacity to his blocking. And then Frank Ragnow is one of the best centers in the league. So this is a very strong offensive line that can give Jared Goff a pocket, that can open up the holes for Jamal Williams and DAndre Swift. So, I mean, this offense is not necessarily terrible, but I think their wide receivers are going to hold them back at times. And the fact that I think they're going to hold them back, if that wide receiver group were to start getting dinged with injuries, that's really going to hurt them. Now, I'm not saying the kid can come in here and boost the wide receiver group, but I would watch a guy like N'Keal Harry from the Patriots who requested a trade. This could be a landing spot for him. So maybe I talk about that in my year 3 wide receiver video. Please go watch that so you can hear me going more in depth about that topic. But he's maybe a guy to watch to get traded here. Other than that, I think this offense is going to be very inconsistent because I think their wide receivers are going to let them down during certain plays on passing situations. And I'm not the biggest believer in Jared Goff. I just am not. So he has his moments where he's on fire, then he just has his moments where he looks clueless and he has no confidence in himself. And when that happens, his offenses usually fall apart underneath him. So This is going to be a very inconsistent offense, but if there's one thing to like about their future, I think they're already set up on the offensive line. You got to like their running back group. You got to like TJ Hawkinson. They just got to figure out their wide receiver room and figure out if Jared Goff will be the man or if they need to look for somebody else after this season. Keep it moving to their defense now. Again, these are projected starters from Ryan Frederick. Give that guy a follow at RyanFred1415. Their defense is a good mixture. It's a nice mixture of veterans and young guys. It'll be interesting to see how they all mesh well together. If there's one thing you like about this Detroit team as a whole is what they have built in the trenches. I really do like their defensive front entering the year with Romeo Okwara, Michael Brockers, their rookie Levi Onwuzurike, and Trey Flowers. And then I mentioned his name earlier. They got Deshaun Hand in the rotation. Romeo's brother, Julian Okwara, I really liked him entering the draft class last year. So they got a very solid defensive front with a couple guys in the rotation I like as well. So if there is something they can hinge on, is that they're going to be able to battle and stop the run game, and they got a couple guys that can get after the quarterback in passing situations. So that's hands down their best group on their defense. Their linebacker group, that's where you got some concerns. Jamie Collins Sr., he's been obviously a good linebacker in the league, but he's getting up there in age. They get drafted Derek Barnes, so we'll have to see if he can be productive as a rookie. He's got Jalen Reeves-Maybin projected to be in there. He's more of a special teams guy, but obviously Ryan thinks he's going to be able to take the next step and compete for a starting role. I wouldn't be surprised though if Jelani Tavai or Sean Dion Hamilton work in the rotation. It's a average, maybe at best, linebacker group, below average. So I see these guys kind of struggling in coverage. I see these guys kind of struggling at times stopping the run. Luckily, they, like I just mentioned, they got some really good defensive linemen that are going to command the offensive line's presence or focus during blocking situations. So they can use the offensive line to help fly around the field to make the tackles, but I do think they're going to struggle covering tight ends and the guys that are going to be running around the middle of the field. And then their secondary is somewhat intriguing, I will say. Jeff Okudah had a very rough rookie year, but I think the kid can bounce back and be the player that I thought and all the analysts thought that he could be, and be that top 5 pick that he was selected to be. I still have high hopes for Jeff Okudah despite his rookie struggles, and I think he could have a very good sophomore year. Quinton Dunbar, he's a good cornerback, but his play can be hit and miss. And when he's on. And I do like the little cornerback tandem that they got with Okudah and Dunbar. And Amani Owari is a pretty good nickel cornerback. So I like their cornerback group. We'll have to see if they can, mesh well, and that will lead to some good coverage on the field. And then their safety group is where I do have my concerns. It's an okay safety group. Tracy Walker, like I mentioned, he's all right, nothing special. Will Harris, he got some starts in. He's still growing as a player. As you can see, he's got that star next to his name. So he hasn't even started more than 12 games in his career. So he's looking to grow, and we're trying to see the player that he's going to be. And then when you look at Ifeatu Milifanu, I probably just totally butchered that. You can see his name over there on notable backups. They got him in the 3rd round, so it'll be interesting to see if he can work himself in the rotation. But overall, that's my biggest concern, not only with their secondary, but this, outside of their defensive front, that I got a couple guys. I do worry about the depth, definitely in the secondary, and some of the depth in their linebacker room. If this defensive front starts to get hit with ticky-tack injuries, this is going to go very south for the Lions. As a whole, though, if you look at the projected starters with some of those guys I like and the notable backups, it's a decent group. It's nothing that's going to... It's nothing going to be world beaters. I just think it's kind of like the offense, right? They got some pieces in place for the future, right? They got their defensive front kind of figured out, because Michael Brockers and Trey Flowers are getting up there in age. So eventually they're going to have to work their way into finding guys that they can develop to replace those guys in the next year or so. I'm not sure exactly when both those guys' contracts up, but I do know they're getting up there in their age. And then they just got to figure out their linebacker group, because Jamie Collins Sr. obviously is up there in age, and I think his contract will be coming to an end in the next year or two for the Lions. And the other guys are unproven dudes. And then their secondary, Jeff Okudah's there for the long haul. Maybe Omani Orari, but Dunbar's only on a 1-year deal. Walker's about to enter free agency, so that's a group they got to figure out. So I think they're going to have some really bad struggles this year on defense, and I think if the offense is having struggles staying on the field and keeping the chains moving, this defensive unit is going to get gassed and get carved up throughout the year, especially when you get into the second half of the schedule. But yeah, that's the preview of the offense and defense. As far as this team as a whole, man, I have very low expectations for them. This is only my 7th video, but obviously I'm starting with the worst teams in the league from last year and working my way up. So I'll go ahead and say this. I think I can confidently say, I think the number 1 pick for the next draft class, it's going to come down between the Texans and the Lions. I really do believe that, but I think the Lions might not get that because I think they do have like I said, I really like their offensive line. I like DAndre Swift and Jamal Williams as a tandem. I really like TJ Hawkinson, and then I really like their defensive front on that side of the ball. And there's a couple pieces in their secondary I like. Overall, though, even though I like pieces of this Lions team, the whole team aspect, it's nothing to be run home about. Like, got to figure out quarterback, got to figure out wide receiver, and then there's a lot of holes and lack of depth in multiple areas of this team. So this is a team that's going to struggle to win games at times. If they play against high potent offenses, I really doubt they can win in any type of shootout. So this is a team that if a team gets out to a 2-touchdown lead, it's probably going to be over for them. If I'm going to be honest, I have no faith in Jared Goff leading a bunch of comebacks with the Lions like he did with LA over the last 3 years. So it's going to be a long year, I think, for Detroit. But if there's anything the Lions fans can bet on, is they do have some pieces of the future. They already have the trenches built. So if they can figure out everything outside the trenches underneath Dan Campbell, I would not be surprised if this Lions team is highly competitive in 2 years. I won't even say next year. In 2 years, I would give them the benefit of the doubt. But of course, that's betting on the continued growth of the pieces I like on this team and them getting the right players for the next 2 free agency classes and the next 2 draft classes. Other than that, I see this as a team that's going to be picking in the top 5 this year. But yeah, that's my video for the Lions. I do appreciate anybody that watched this one today. Please make sure you go hit the like button. Please make sure you subscribe to my channel so you get any of these videos once they're uploaded. And go tell a friend to tune in and check out all my preview videos. And if you haven't, go check out every video I've done so far on my YouTube channel. My next video I will be doing... oh, by the way, sometimes I forgot to mention this. I stream defenses. Lions got the 49ers week 1. Kyle Shanahan, nope, I am not streaming their defense. So I did forget to mention that in that section. But yeah, next team I'm going to cover is the Carolina Panthers. I do plan on doing that tomorrow, so do expect that tomorrow morning at some point whenever I can get it all edited and uploaded. And then other than that, you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Talk to you later.